Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. I'm just going to give another minute here for everyone to join the webinar. All right, it looks like we have a number of people online, so I will go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the informational webinar on the interest-free loan program that GGGI is offering as part of our Eastern Caribbean Greenpreneurs Accelerator program. My name is Kristen Deason, and I will be your moderator for today. I am the country representative for the Global Green Growth Institute, or GGGI, in the Caribbean, and I'm based here in St. Lucia. If you're not familiar with GGGI, and if I could have the next slide, please. Gives a little background on our organization. Thank you. We are an international intergovernmental organization headquartered in Korea. We have 43 members, and our mission is to help our members transition to a model of economic growth that is environmentally sustainable and socially inclusive. All of our members are governments, except for here in the Eastern Caribbean, where our member is OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. And in fact, we are based here at the OECS Commission. We work with the OECS Commission at the regional level and with OECS member states on the national level on projects related to climate change, renewable energy, green entrepreneurship, and climate finance, among other areas. Our overall goal is to support the region on creating policy frameworks and mobilizing finance to meet sustainability and climate goals and become more resilient to the effects of climate change. And last year, with the support of the Qatar Fund for Development and along with our partners, the OECS Commission and Youth Climate Lab, we launched the Eastern Caribbean Green Entrepreneurship Initiative, which is a 3-year program aimed at supporting green businesses and creating green jobs in the region. We believe that the private sector and small and medium-sized local businesses in particular will play a key role in meeting the region's sustainability goals. We see our Greenpreneurs program as a unique program that aims to address 2 major challenges in the region, climate change and job creation, in one program. Some of you may be aware that last year we launched an Incubator Program under the Greenpreneurs that was aimed at early stage green businesses. The training component of that program has just ended a few weeks ago, and we're now in the process of evaluating submissions for the business plan competition, for which selected participants will receive $10,000 US seed grants. We will be accepting applications for the second cohort of this program later this year, so stay tuned for more information about that. But now on to our main topic for today, which is our interest-free loan program. So this program is part of our Accelerator program, which targets more mature businesses that are in their growth stage. And my colleagues will tell you more about this program in a few minutes. But first, let me go through our agenda and tell you what we have in store for you today. If I could have the next slide, please. Very good. Okay. We'll start with a few welcome remarks. We have an overview of our Greenpreneurs program in general, providing a little bit more detail than I've provided here. And then we'll go into some more detail about the interest-free loan program specifically, what kind of businesses we're looking to apply, what the eligibility requirements are, and how you apply. But we wanted to leave most of the time in today's webinar for questions and answers because we know there's a lot of questions people may have. So we'll move on to the Q&A portion after the presentation. And certainly, please feel free to ask any questions during the presentations via the Q&A box on the bottom of your Zoom screen. So before we go further, let me introduce our panel. Just give me 1 second. We have a number of people from GGGI as well as the OECS Commission. We have Mrs. Jacqueline Emmanuel Flood, who is the Director of OECS Economic Affairs and Regional Integration Division. We have Tracy Roberts, who is the Technical Specialist for Entrepreneurship Development in OECS. One second. We have Pearl Joseph, who is a Program Assistant with OECS, and Donna Athans, who is also a Program Assistant. For GGI, we have Laura John, who's our program officer in the Caribbean Greenpreneurs Program. Daria Poyet is our administrative associate in the Greenpreneurs Program. Deja Hussein, our intern. Ferruccio Santetti, our Green Investment Services lead for the LAC region. And Omar Hernandez, who is a senior investment associate. Oh, sorry, I missed Kareem Geist. Kareem, I didn't realize you were going to be on the line. Kareem is also with OECS Entrepreneurship Development Team. All right, so I would like to invite everyone to please introduce yourself in the chat, all the attendees, so we can know who's online, and please feel free to connect and network with each other if you'd like. And as I mentioned, please use the Q&A function to ask any questions during the presentations. I would encourage you to ask your questions in the Q&A box as opposed to the chat function if you can, but we will also try to keep an eye on the chat if there's any questions there. So with that, I will hand it over to Mrs. Jacqueline Emanuel Flood for welcoming remarks from the OECS Commission. Jackie,
thank you, Christine, and good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I perhaps have the most formal part of the proceedings this morning. I wish to extend a very warm welcome to you, Christine, and also to Kareem, who is the head of the Competitive Business Unit. I also want to warmly welcome the other members of the GGI team who will be speaking this morning, like Mr. Ferruccio Santetti, who is the GGI Regional Investment Lead. I think Christine have already introduced you, Omar Hernandez and Laura John, and also to all our members of the OECS team and the GGI team who may not have been introduced this morning. All of you, good morning. I want to also extend a very special welcome to the participants who are here this morning. I think we have quite a number of persons who have registered, but it is you, the participants, in whom lies our hope of transforming the resources of the Eastern Caribbean Green Entrepreneurship Initiatives Accelerator Program into thriving green enterprises. Entrepreneurs, in my view, are the most magical mathematicians. They extract resources, that's your minus. They put them together, that's your plus. And through their unique business multiplication processes, they generate output that far surpasses the value of the resources that they have used. And whilst entrepreneurship endeavor is essential for growth and development, business practices over the last century has shown that our processes can also be wasteful and harmful, and that the environmental resources that have often been discounted in the production process is indeed the most valuable resource of all. It is therefore quite understandable that green entrepreneurs have become supremely important to the pursuance of economic growth and also resilience building, and ultimately to the reversal of the ravages of climate change. The OECS, through the Competitive Business Unit, is very pleased to partner with the GGGI and the Quarter Fund for Development to host this webinar to inform you of the Eastern Caribbean Green Entrepreneurship Initiatives Accelerator interest-free loan program. Green entrepreneurs are at the core of innovating and rejuvenating existing business systems to increase productivity. Green entrepreneurs like you are an important avenue for which we can harness emerging opportunities in growth sectors. And I might also emphasize that green entrepreneurs are at the forefront of the global effort for a sustainable future. By stating the role of green entrepreneurs in this way, it must sometimes seem quite a heavy weight of expectation that is being placed on small and micro enterprises in the OECS, who often experience severe business ecosystem challenges, many of which are endemic to small open economies like ours. One of the most binding constraints to our green entrepreneurs that they face is access to finance at affordable terms and conditions. The very things which bring about change and development, such as research and development, technological development and adaptation, are often seen as sunk costs from an accounting point of view. And these costs come well ahead of the associated revenue streams. And this does not comply with conventional financing criteria of most credit institutions. Many of you young entrepreneurs have what I call bamboo tree businesses. It is said that the bamboo tree remains 3 years in the ground before a single shoot is seen. However, the bamboo is also the fastest growing plant on the planet. It has been recorded at an amazing 47.6 inches, nearly 4 feet in 24 hours. The bamboo is one of our best examples of acceleration. Likewise, despite promising plans for future success, many of our green entrepreneurs need funding support to enable them to reach this growth and acceleration stage. The OECS is therefore very pleased to be part of this webinar, which is intended to provide more information on the recently launched OECS GGI interest-free loan program for green entrepreneurs. This loan facility is one of the services that will be provided under the Eastern Caribbean Green Entrepreneurship Initiative Accelerator program, as both myself and Kristen have already said, and is intended to assist the growth and scale up of green or sustainable businesses in the OECS. The Accelerator program will also provide networking and investor matching opportunities, which will allow OECS green businesses to access mentorship and equity for scale up. We are very happy that such a program is seeking to foster connections with private sector development finance institutions and domestic financial institutions within the entrepreneurial ecosystem. A stronger ecosystem will result in greater benefits to all entrepreneurs, since it will provide a sustainable investment framework for the future. The Commission is delighted that with the progress of its partnership with the GGGI to support green entrepreneurship development in our space. I am also very pleased to note that the Incubator Program for startups has progressed smoothly since it was launched last year. And I'm very happy that the program will soon graduate its first cohort of 20 entrepreneurs who will have the opportunity to access seed capital through the upcoming pitch competition. Finally, as we celebrate International Women's Day, it is fitting to note that 75% of the participants in the Incubator Program are women. We certainly hope that many women will apply for this exciting opportunity under the Accelerator Program to access interest-free capital to help scale their businesses. We also believe that the initiative is timely, as it can provide a boost to companies who are recovering from the impacts of the pandemic. I therefore look forward to the success of the seminar, and I hope that your questions and concerns will be adequately addressed so that we can receive strong applications from this region. I thank you, and I wish you a really interactive and productive day.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I really like that bamboo analogy. Bamboo grows quickly, and we want to help you grow even more quickly. So I suppose I see this program as the water to the bamboo that will help accelerate its growth. And Jackie, thank you for those wonderful remarks, and thank you also to you and your team for your support of this program. We are proud to work with you and very much appreciate your support. All right, let me turn it over now to our GGI Program Officer, Laura John, who will provide a brief overview of our Greenpreneurs program. Laura?
Thank you very much, Kristen. And I will start off by adopting the protocol previously established by my colleagues, and also to wish a happy International Women's Day to all our women participants, my colleagues present on this in this session today. So the Eastern Caribbean Green Entrepreneurship Initiative is a 3-year program that is funded by the Qatar Fund for Development and is being implemented by GGI in partnership with the OECS. As Kristen mentioned in her introduction, the objective is to support micro, small, medium-sized businesses in the OECS region and help them grow. We are looking at creating green jobs, as well as supporting our OECS countries in achieving their sustainable and climate action goals. And to do this, we have designed a program with 3 very specific components. So the very first component is the Entrepreneurship Ecosystem, the Incubator Program, and an Accelerator Program. I will start by just providing a brief description of our Entrepreneurship Ecosystem. Daria, could you go to the next slide, please? Okay. So before I describe the ecosystem, I will provide a definition of a green entrepreneur or a green business. So as I know, this is a concept that is a bit newer to the region. And when we say green business or a green entrepreneur, we're really speaking about a purpose-driven entrepreneur seeking to address environmental and or social issues through their business while building wealth. Traditionally, work in the environmental and social sphere is typically associated with NGOs and community organizations. But what we're trying to do through green entrepreneurship is truly transform the business landscape by actually supporting businesses that are prioritizing the environmental and social along with the building of wealth. As we know that businesses are actually key drivers in creating change at a much faster rate than the public sector, for example. Next slide, please. So the entrepreneurial ecosystem is essentially looking at providing a platform to support our entrepreneurs well beyond the 3-year life of this program. So we're looking at establishing mentorship and networking systems, ensuring that our business support organizations are getting the necessary support to increase their capacity, and basically creating that framework to ensure that we can continue to provide support for our entrepreneurs in the region and ensure their development in the long term. Next slide. Our incubator program, which Kristen just mentioned, we've just come to the close of our very first training component, is actually a 12-week training program where we focus on our early stage businesses. So in some cases, it may be persons with a green business idea or entrepreneurs who've just recently launched or are piloting their green business. And they go through a training program where they're introduced to social lean canvas methodology, so they understand how to build a sustainable business. They also will be supported through a mentorship program, have opportunities to network with other entrepreneurs in the region and other business professionals, and finally to participate in a business plan competition where they have the opportunity to secure 10,000 US in grant funding. And just to give you a sense of or a flavor for the types of businesses that have been part of our incubator program, we have many entrepreneurs who are involved in the agriculture, agro-processing sector, but looking at utilizing a climate smart approach, integrating regenerative agriculture as the foundation for developing and producing crops that are organic, that are healthier, have higher nutrient content, so that our food security is not only stabilized through the production of food that is of better quality, but also using these techniques to create a more consistent supply of food that can then go through the supply chain of agro-processing and supply local and regional markets. We also have participants who are looking at using some of our indigenous superfoods like CMOS to create immune boosting supplements. We have persons who are looking at the waste sector and utilizing waste materials to create high-end fashion or decor items. So we have a variety of businesses in a variety of sectors that we are looking to support, but all of them have one thing in common, and that is at their core is their sustainability goals, which are really driving what they're doing and why they're doing it. Next slide, please. And the final component is our Incubator Program, which consists of a number of different subcomponents. We have the Accelerator interest-free loan, which we will be speaking about in more detail for today's session. However, we're also looking to provide participants with opportunities for networking, for being matched with investors through an investor roundtable. We're looking at developing investor database so that, again, to facilitate matching growth stage businesses with financing through investors. So the interest-free loan component is not the only means by which a growth stage business in the Accelerator program may have an opportunity to actually secure some type of funding. We also have learning opportunities in that we will be sharing modules around business continuity planning and disaster management, as well as strategic planning. So participants will have access to these different resources. And next slide, please. So these are just brief, a brief summary and description of the programs under the Eastern Caribbean Green Entrepreneurship Initiative. And I will hand over to my colleague, Omar, who will go now into more detail about the Accelerator interest-free loan program, which is what I know you are all here and interested in finding out more about. So Omar, on to you.
Thanks, Laura, and welcome everyone. So I would like to start giving you a brief introduction of the main objective of the interest-free loan program. So with this component of the Accelerator, we are seeking to develop this establishment and scale up of innovative green enterprises in the six OECS member countries. And so we are doing that ultimately for seeking and contributing towards the creation of 3,000 green jobs and improvement of livelihoods of 12,000 people over 13 years period. So the interest-free loan program, as Laura mentioned before, we are targeting high potential enterprises in growth stage that aims to address social and other environmental issues. So what are we understanding for high potential enterprises? As we wanna see it in the following slides, I will mention that we understand for that are enterprises with at least 3 years track record experience, and so another aspects that I will mention afterwards. So the program includes a funding component in the form of an interest-free loan ranging from $30,000 to $50,000 US, and within a 5 to 6 year repayment period. And finally, as also Laura mentioned before, we are including in this program a peer-to-peer roundtables and presentation for the selected applicants with international, regional, and national investors also to promote and scale up your business. Next slide, please. So to give you a brief explanation on what is the timeline of the application, the program will be launching 2 calls for proposals each year. What are you seeing right now? It's the current timeline for this application of this period. So from February to April 24th, we are welcoming applicants. After 24th of April, so during the last week of April, we're gonna run a preliminary screening where the screening committee is gonna analyze of the application, and they might contact you if we need further information on your application, or they have queries on the application. After we run the preliminary screening, we are going to do the assessment and selection of applicants in May. So during the whole May, we're gonna select the awarded applicants, and then in June and July, we will run the due diligence process, and the applicant selection will be announced. For that, could you go for the next slide? I want to just emphasize how the application process will work. Just to make it really clear for you, you have till the 24th of April, but we really invite you to apply as soon as possible and before the deadline, just to avoid some documentation or avoid some problems that you might have during submitting the application or filling the documents. The assessment process will be based on the eligibility criteria. So you must meet all the eligibility criteria and make sure that you met all the requirements before applying. I will explain you the eligibility criteria in a bit. So as I mentioned, once you apply, we want to run the assessment, and we might contact you if needed. The results notification will be in May, at the end of May or June, depending on the numbers of applicants. And also, well, I'm just including the link for the application, but we will also put it on the chat for you to access and apply if you are not able to find the link. Could you go to the next one? So then I will really want to emphasize on the eligibility criteria. In order to apply, you must comply, and you must comply with all the following aspects. So the first one is to be a for-profit legal entity registered and with operation in one of the participating OECS member countries. So the countries are Antigua and Barbuda, the Commonwealth of Dominica, Grenada, Saint Lucia, San Kitts and Nevis, San Vicente, and the Grenadines. So you need to be registered in one of these countries to be able to apply. You also will need to have at least 3 years of operation as of the application date. So, I mean, it's a bit obvious, but if you apply by April of this year, you will have to have 3 years by that time of operation. You also must have a minimum average annual turnover of EC 120,000 EC, or which is around 44,400 USD during the past 3 years. You are also required to have a recorded at least 25% revenue growth over the last 3 fiscal years. Again, this is a compulsory requirement. And finally, you should be able, or the company on the enterprise, needs to be able to demonstrate sufficient financial resources comprising working capital, which could be supplemented by credit line statements or overdraft facilities, at least equal to the interest-free loan requested. So, for example, if you are requesting the $50,000, you must demonstrate that you have the equal financial resources, either credit line statements or overdraft facilities, and so on. Apart from this, you should comply with at least one key performance indicators that I'm going to mention. This is just, you must comply just with one, or of course, if you have more, you're really welcome also to apply. So you should demonstrate greenhouse gases mitigation potential, or increase resilience to climate change, Also, you could also demonstrate that you promote or participate on circular economy. And finally, you should also promote or include green jobs creation potential. All of these aspects needs to be included in the product or services you are provided. But again, in the key performance indicator, you must comply just with one, and you could apply whether on the eligibility criteria and the other aspect, you must comply with all of them. Could you go to the next one, please? So on the documentation, as we hope you already open and found the Google form application where you can submit your data. But before you submitting your application, you must fill the application document. Daria, could you project the application document? But while we show the application document, I will explain you that this document, it's mainly it contains three principal documents. The first one is the entity information, the second one is the project financials, and the third one and final one is the environmental and social checklist document. So the entity information, I think we are having some problems projecting the documents, but anyway, I could explain you while we project it. So the entity information, basically this form, what is going to ask you, it's basic data such as the name of the company, the requested amount. Again, the requested amount needs to be in USD between 30 to 50,000. And then you will have to provide a checklist of all the compulsory minimum requirements. So you need to click and basically provide and guarantee that you are complying with all the requested information. Then you will have to offer brief descriptions on each aspect. So this will include aspects such as your company business models, your target customers, your key stakeholders, the green job creation potential that you see in your current situation and in your forecasted situation. Then you will have to provide other information. On the three Word documents, we really encourage you to comply with the maximum amount of words. In most of the cases are 200 to 500 words, so please keep in mind the maximum number of words. So on the project financials, again, something I just want to highlight is that you will need really to provide and offer a description of what are your intended use of the grant, of the interest-free loan. So in that section, you will need to provide information on what are the intended use, what is the timeline of expenditure, how were the activities you are estimated, and the cost. You will also need to provide some key financial ratios. So current ratio, quick ratio, debt service coverage ratio, which I will mention afterwards, and other financial aspects that we are requesting. Also, we really invite you to inform us or share with us if you already have funds committed. So if you have, let's say, some third-party investor equity, or what is the amount of equity you have invested on your services or product. And finally, on the environmental and social checklist, you will have to offer us you will have to fill a format where we have to tick yes or not and offer comments. So, for instance, we will ask you if your business could negatively impact local and indigenous communities, for give you an example, and then you are required not just to say yes or not, you are required to offer a brief explanation on the comments. But so anyway, so once you submit the application, and again, I just want to emphasize, before submitting and sending your Google Forms, make sure you are also attaching and answering all the document application with the three sections I just mentioned. Before submitting the application, as we will not review and we won't be able to evaluate and assess your application if you don't comply with all the compulsory documents. And so how it's gonna be the assessment criteria and the selection? We're gonna evaluate it with five main criteria, all of them rating with a 24%. So pragmatic shift potential, what are we looking is that your product or services offers a replicability and scalability potential within the country and region or in the ecosystem. Then we are also looking for green economy recovery and co-benefits. So what we mean here is the potential of creating green jobs and also including green economy recovery measures within the next 5 years on your service and product. We will also evaluate greenhouse gases mitigation and adaptation potential, as well as waste management commitment. As you can see, for example, on mitigation, of course, we will evaluate potential, so avoiding tons of CO2, the project's life and cost per ton of CO2 avoided. Whereas on the adaptation side, we will analyze the strategies to reduce negative impacts of climate change. Then of course, we also will assess the alignment with national and regional targets. So here we want to see that your product and services are aligned with national policies, such as the national development plans or the national adaptation plans and so on. And finally, we will also analyze the financial viability of your application. So we want to analyze also the risk mitigation strategy demonstrated. So could you go for the next to the next one, Daria, please? So just to give you a brief example, some indicators and examples that we are showing here, and I just want to emphasize those are illustrative, and although you are really welcome to use them, we are expecting you to provide more indicators. But just to give an example, on pragmatic shift potential, we might think about market size. So for example, extending the company's operation nearby other OECS members, countries, so on the green economy, for example, number of jobs created per USD invested, for example, 10 jobs created during the next 10 years as a result of the company increased operations from the application of the interest-free loan program. In terms of mitigation, adaptation in management, for example, tons of CO2 equivalent avoided. So we are saying here that 10 tons of CO2 equivalent results of the company increased operation with the cost of 30 USD per ton. And just to name an adaptation example, number of households benefiting from the adoption of diversified climate resilient livelihood options. And in terms of the waste, so then we will also evaluate waste generation, per volume per USD. So for example, you could say that the service or product you are providing will collect 50 tons and recycle them. In terms of, as I mentioned, on the national and regional targets, again, national adaptation plans, national determined contribution, SDGs. So the important here is just to provide KPIs and examples that key performance indicators, that are aligned with the national and regional policies on the aspects or service you are developing your product or service. And finally, on the financial viability, some of the aspects we are encouraging you to use and that we consider relevant, it's the quick ratio, the debt service coverage ratio, and the EBIT. So for example, we are looking for projects that have a quick ratio above 2, DSCR above 2 to 3, and revenue. Of course, we want to look at your revenue growth and also that the IRR are 8 above WACC. Could you go to the next one? And please, if you have questions, you could also type them on the section of Q&A that you see on your Zoom platform. So how's gonna be the implementation process? Again, what you are seeing here is for the first application, but this will be repeated every year in 2 calls of proposals, of course, depending on the times. But so in July and August, once we announce the awarded enterprises, We want to develop of the monitoring and reporting plan, and we also want to sign the formalization funding agreement by signing, of course, the disbursement agreement and other aspects within your company. Then in August of the current year, we are aiming to disburse the funding, and then the funding will have a life cycle up to 5 years. Again, it's an interest-free loan program, so you will not have to pay the interest. And then finally, during the next year for this current application, we will have semi-annual monitoring and reporting season, where we will have to discuss what have been the use of funds and mainly if you are able to pay the interest-free loan and so on. Then we will also hold the investors roundtable that I mentioned before. And also, of course, you are expected to, we are expecting the loan repayment after the first year of your, or that you receive the funding. Could you go to the next one, please? And so just to give you an example of how will be the disbursement process and what are we expecting. So during the first year, as I mentioned, we will offer you the amount you requested. And after that, you are expected to pay to repay the interest-free loan in a 20% each year payment. So for example, here you will have to pay in the 24, the 36, the 48, the 60, and the 72 month of the repayment calendar. So basically, every year you are expected to pay 24%. And of course, just to mention again that this interest-free loan, it's provided within the programs and within the program and what we are agreeing on the disbursement agreement. So all of these, we will also discuss it with the awarded enterprises. And could you go to the next? Well, before going to the Q&A questions, I just want to emphasize those things that I didn't mention early. In case we are welcoming also joint ventures applicants, but in case we have or you are a joint venture interested in applying, at least one of the companies that is interesting to apply must comply with the eligibility criteria. So at least one should be based in one of the countries and so on, and needs to comply, with the eligibility criteria. And finally, you are welcome to apply more than once. If in this application you are not selected, you will also receive a small feedback of why or the reasons you are not selected for this application, and you are really welcome to keep applying for the program. The only thing is once you are awarded, you will not be allowed to apply again as you already received funding. And yeah, could you go to the next one? And with that, I will give the word to Kristen, and of course open to answer all your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Omar and Laura, for taking us through that overview of the program and very detailed overview of the eligibility requirements and application process. Omar, we've received a couple of questions. One is a request to speak a little bit more slowly, so we'll try to do that during the Q&A, but that was coming from Patrick. Easy, Patrick, if there's anything that was covered too quickly that you'd like us to repeat, please feel free to put that in the Q&A or in the chat. We have another question coming from Siobhan. Siobhan says, my business has been registered for only 1 year. Do you have a program in place for startup businesses? And the answer is yes. Laura, can I hand it over to you to answer that in a bit more detail?
Yes, thank you, Kristen. So we do have the Incubator Program, which is specifically designed for early stage businesses. So we are accepting applications when we do launch the program, which we should be launching a second round of the Incubator Program later this year. We will be accepting applications from entrepreneurs with a green business idea as well as those who have already launched and might be in their first few months, first year of actual operations. And that too may look like you may simply be piloting your business idea, or you might be you may have fully launched your very first product, but once you're within those first 2 years, you would be eligible for the Incubator Program. And that program, the way it's designed, includes the training that is essentially 3 months, where you're actually going through various modules, learning how to develop your green business. And then it culminates with the business plan competition at the end, where you do have an opportunity to secure 10,000 US in grant funding. So you can certainly join our mailing list. I think we'll try to put that in the chat if you haven't already, and you will then get notifications when we're getting ready to launch that specific program. Back to you, Kristen.
Thanks very much, Laura. And the second part of that question was, do you fund LED businesses, LED? And I have to admit, I don't know what you mean by that acronym, Siobhan. If you could perhaps clarify that in the chat for us. We'll put that one on hold, unless any of my fellow partners, panelists recognize that acronym and would like to respond.
I'm not 100% sure the context for that one, so I'll wait for Siobhan to provide clarification.
Lighting, yeah, I was thinking of LED lighting
Okay.
as well. I thought maybe that's not, I thought maybe it meant something else, but I would say yes, LED lighting is certainly something that's related to the goals of the program, because it's related to energy efficiency and saving energy. And so I think as long as you can articulate how that technology is related to the environmental goals of the country, as we described earlier, I think that would certainly qualify under our program. Great, okay. Next question is coming from Kate. She says, hello, I'm Kate. Are organic farmers eligible for these loans? And I would say, yes, definitely, but I'll hand it over to Laura. Maybe Laura, you can talk a little bit more about, I know we have a lot of agriculture businesses in our incubator, so maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit. But the short answer is yes.
Yes, thank you, Kate. I think in terms of finding which program is best suited for your specific business, you just need to be very clear on your stage. So, you know, are you established and more are you an established growth stage business where you would be looking to secure a loan through the accelerator, or are you more of an early stage startup in the first 2 years of operation and looking for more support in training and then potentially securing a grant to kick things off? So just to create that distinction, but as an organic farmer, you are certainly a green enterprise, because as we stated, we define green entrepreneurs and green businesses as purpose-driven people or enterprises that are seeking to address environmental and or social issues. So certainly your organic farming would be an example of a green enterprise, because you are addressing a variety of issues, from food security to looking at the quality of our soils, as well as the quality of the crops that you're producing by using an organic method for production. So that's the long yes explanation.
Thanks very much, Laura. And I would also make mention of regenerative agriculture techniques are something that can be used to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which of course is one of the indicators that we track. So that's also something to look into as you're using these organic techniques. A lot of those overlap the regenerative techniques, and you can see how those have been shown to reduce emissions. Omar, did you want to add something to that? No pressure, I just saw your camera.
Yeah, no, I think you already covered everything. Well, you and Laura.
Okay, great. Sorry, I muted myself accidentally. Another question coming through the chat is, do you foresee investor readiness training being provided? That I believe came from Telly. And I will say that our incubator program, the way that we've designed it, is more heavy on the training than the accelerator program. However, we do have a number of trainings planned to be provided as part of the accelerator program, which are intended to be open to everyone through a webinar format. And Laura or Omar, maybe one of you can touch upon the topics that we have planned for those and whether that covers investor readiness.
Do you want to speak to that?
Go ahead, Laura, and I'll complement you.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, go ahead, Laura. I'll complement you.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, so we are looking at providing learning opportunities through the business continuity planning and disaster management module that we'll be presenting, as Kristen said, in a webinar format, as well as a second module on strategic planning. And with the strategic planning, the focus is on helping businesses really identify a methodology for making decisions that can best position their enterprise to really grow and scale in a sustainable way. And so through that module, we'll definitely be providing you with tools and resources so that you can understand how to actually build a plan to guide your business. And similarly for the business continuity planning and disaster management, it is, I think we all understand the importance of putting in place plans as a means of dealing with any kind of disaster or essentially dealing with the risks that we face as businesses, whether it's a natural disaster or, as we all have experienced in the last 2 years, a global pandemic, but understanding how our businesses can respond to these situations and have a plan so that we do not basically become casualties of these events that are outside of our control. And it means understanding what type of business we have and looking at various methods for mitigating those risks, whether it's through insurance, whether it's through, temporary scaling down of operations or adopting a slightly different business model. So these are just some examples of what the modules will be covering. And Omar, do you want to?
Yeah, I will just add that at the end, the models we are offering are designed to cover what we believe you will need for the following years as a participant on the interest-free loan program. So yeah, as Laura mentioned, we will go from climate risks and how it impact on your business and potentially on your financial aspects and also on the disaster management. So rather than just to repeat, instead of just repeat what Laura says, I will just say that we design it with that mindset. Yeah, so, but if there is a follow-up question, happy to answer.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Omar. And I would also add that this may be obvious, but this is for the first year we've done the program. We launched it last year. This was our first year of the Incubator Program that's just wrapping up, and the interest-free loan program that we're talking about today is the first time we've done it. So certainly want to improve as we go, because the project is going on for a number of years. So feedback like that is very useful to us. And I think that as we go forward, if there are areas where businesses need additional support, or if there's a need for additional training and support in order to be able to take advantage of the services we're providing, we certainly want to hear that. So please keep those comments coming in. And thank you everyone for the great questions. Keep them coming. Let me see here. Hold on one second. Okay, we have a question from Aneta. She says, we are a tourism business who wants to get our business to be energy efficient. However, Antigua is still using R22 gas, which makes utilities extremely expensive. Would we qualify for this grant? Again, I think that certainly if one of the objectives of your business is to become more energy efficient, and that's part of your business model, then yes, you would qualify. Again, we would need you to be able to articulate that in your application, tie it to the national goals of Antigua. I know Antigua has quite ambitious goals, so I think there would certainly be a link that could be made there. And then again, quantify how the technologies that you're using will be able to either reduce the greenhouse gas emissions or reduce waste. I think in this case it would be more along the lines of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Omar, Laura, would you want to add anything to that about energy efficiency?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, but certainly, yes, agree. Energy efficiency is very important. I think a lot of times we tend to focus on renewable energy because it seems more, sort of exciting or sexy or something like that. But energy efficiency, of course, is also very important and a big component of reducing emissions and reducing energy use. Follow-up question or comments, I suppose, from Telly that says, may I propose you have a follow-up webinar educating people on climate mitigation and adaptation and circular economy models so that people can better identify how they fit in. Some businesses might not be familiar with the greenhouse gas accounting and some of the terminologies you reference in the criteria. Yes, that's a great comment, Telly. We do provide some more information about that. We have a specific module in our Incubator program that goes into more detail about those topics, but understood that there may also be a need for more information about that on the accelerator levels. So definitely we will take that into account and see how we might be able to further support in that area. Omar, question for you. This is actually coming from Dija on our team, and you didn't make mention of COVID in your presentation, but I know there were some questions on social media that we had before the webinar, particularly relating to the criteria on sales growth over the past few years. And could you talk about how businesses might be able to get an exception to that if they've had challenges during the COVID pandemic?
Yes, Christine. Sorry, my internet's a bit unstable, so I turned off my camera. But so we understand that due to the COVID outbreak, you might experience some problems with your revenue growth or degrowth, I will say. So what are we? I will offer you two main answers. One is you are expecting to see, even if you have or if you experience some COVID problems as everyone in the world, to show us that you have sales growth according with prior numbers. So you could provide us with details on how your sales growth has been increasing after the pandemic or during the pandemic, how this sales growth using as the baseline your prior numbers or your prior growth, or you could also explain us the situation and we might be able to analyze your specific situation. So what are we looking here? And also I think Ferro is online, so I welcome him to also provide if he wants more details, or you, Christine. It's what are we looking here is to see your ability or your business ability of your of your sales and the ability of your product demand. So what we want to see is the demand of your products and service and how it's been positioned on the market as because as I mentioned before, we are targeting growth stage companies. But again, we understand the COVID situation and we could talk about it or seek different, I would say, alternative if you don't have the 25% growth due to the COVID pandemic. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Omar.
Yeah.
We're getting a couple of additional questions about particular businesses and would my business be considered a green business? So we have a question from Roy that says, my business is an insurtech space that's seeking to launch a brand that will reduce the level of paper consumption within the sector. Would that be considered? We also have a question from Maddie that says, what if we are providing a business that's creating green tech equipment? I would say, yes, certainly both of those could be considered green businesses. Green tech equipment, obviously there's lots of different kinds of green tech equipment, and reducing paper consumption would, I believe, fall under our waste reduction aspect of the project. So I think the important thing here, though, is that you need to be able to quantify how this is going to contribute to the goals in terms of the indicators that Omar touched upon. So of course, it's not possible to know this exactly, and there has to be some estimation involved. But I think, for example, for the business that's reducing paper consumption, you could look at, how much paper you intend to reduce and quantify that according to the indicators that are provided. And similarly for green tech equipment, again, it depends on what type of equipment that is. If it's renewable energy equipment or some kind of energy efficiency equipment, it would probably be resulting in reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. I suppose it's possible that it could be equipment that's reducing waste in some way or increasing adaptation capacity. In that case, it would be up to you to estimate what the achievements would be in that area. Omar, Laura, would you like to add to that?
I will just include that, of course, to strain your application, I will invite just to not just comply with one key performance indicator, as Christine said. So for example, you could also include some green jobs creation potential that it sounds you might also experience. So if you could justify not just with one, and whether it also mention, I don't know, circular economy, how this will impact, or the green job creation, that will definitely also strengthen your application. Yeah. That's Christine, that's all.
Thanks, Omar. And I would add to that, when you fill out these applications, I would encourage you not to assume that we understand why this is a green business, right? It's very important that you explain to us in detail how this is a green business, what it's going to result in, and then quantify that and tie it to the national goals of your country. Laura, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you and Omar covered that well.
Okay. All right, hopefully that answered the questions. We have more questions coming in. So let's see, the next question is from Komura. She says, can you give me some more details about the investor matching aspect of the program? Omar, can I hand that one to you?
Sure, Christine. So what are we looking at as part of the, of course, the Accelerator and also as the interest-free loan program? We are signing and we are partnering with different investors across the OECS region. So what are we looking at? Now that we partner with them, we are going to organize roundtables or peer-to-peer meetings. As if what I mean is, if you are selected or of the app or of the participating company selected, we will provide them with meetings with different investors in the region that work or are familiar with the type of business you are working, in order to either increase your market potential or your funding opportunities or sharing experience. So to give you an example, and this is again just an example, so if you are seeking, for example, for additional funding, we might be able to put you in contact with some local banks or development banks that we know they are the specific sector or activities your company might work with. And so by organizing these peer-to-peer meetings, we think we will be able also to provide you with additional support, not just with the networking, but also with the specific contacts and details of potential funding sources or knowledge sharing sources. I don't know, Christine, or Laura, if you want to complement me.
Thanks, Omar. No, I don't have anything to add.
Thanks,
I don't know if
Omar.
Laura would like to.
No, that's well covered.
Okay, great. Thank you, Omar. And I see Maddie has clarified in the chat here the green tech technology he was talking about, solar drying systems for dehydrating food. And I would say, yes, that definitely sounds like a green business. And I would say that there's probably a couple of different aspects of the positive benefits of that business. I mean, you're using solar energy, certainly. So that would lead to reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Also, I think it could be argued that if you are creating food products that are going to replace imported food products, that there's also a benefit to be gained there. Perhaps in terms of emissions reductions associated with the transport of other food products, where if somebody isn't, buying your local product, they maybe have to be buying something that's coming in from overseas. So there's certainly a benefit there as well. So definitely encourage you to think about, like Omar said, benefits of these businesses in more than one of the KPI areas. We have a question, actually, I'm not sure who it came from, but it's, will the loan be facilitated through the local banks? And the answer is no. These loans will be dispersed directly from and paid back to GGGI. Okay, we have a question from Janice. I'm not sure if I'm saying your name correctly. Good day. Do you have any grants for nonprofits who are operating in the area of green entrepreneurship or working on projects related to climate change adaptation or mitigation? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. At this time, we don't. This program is directed specifically at for-profit enterprises. GGI does have procurements at some points in time for organizations to contribute to our work, but at the moment, we don't have any grants available for nonprofits. Okay, here's another follow-up question from Roran. A lot was said about having the financial resources in support of the request for the interest-free loan. So first question is this only with respect to the business's ability to repay, or as it relates to provide guarantee for the loan facility? Omar?
Well, we are thinking the interest-free loan as a first buffer lost, I will say. So you could also use the funding as a warranty on that sort of speaking. So I guess it will also depend of what are you requesting the loan for, but the direct or straight answer will be we are thinking it as a first loss buffer. So you could use it technically as a guarantee or as a first point, first point payment. But if you have following questions or I'm not getting your question, please follow up.
Thank you, Omar. And I will also say, if anyone has any follow-up questions for the question that you submitted in the Q&A, you can also raise your hand and we can open up your microphone and allow you to speak. So please feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to ask your question orally or ask a follow-up to something that we've already answered. We have a couple more questions here. Anetta says, our business was totally devastated due to COVID. To date, we are still not seeing the guests we are accustomed to. We had to flip and turn our property into long-term rental, which is still having challenges. How then would we still qualify for the funding where we have to show a certain amount of growth to qualify? I think, Omar, you spoke to that a little bit before. Could you perhaps elaborate on that with respect to this particular question?
Yes, I think, of course, if you don't have the revenue growth, that again would be ideal if you have it, but we understand the situation. We will also look in aspects as your quick ratios, or I think it will also depend on your other financial aspects. So although we could discuss about your revenue growth, and you are able to provide us that before the pandemic you had some specific growth, and then due to the outbreak you experienced a, let's say, degrowth, although I know that's not the correct term. We might be able to waive that aspect also, but depending on, for example, again, your quick ratio, on your interest coverage. So we will need to analyze your specific case and see the financials. I think it's a case by case situation. So I think it will be better to just see it when you apply it, because I don't think I can offer you a direct answer here. Yeah, because we need to analyze the numbers. Yeah.
Christine,
Thanks,
if
Omar.
I can complement on
yeah.
this.
Go ahead, Pharaoh, please.
Just to be clear that there is absolutely flexibility. We understand the situation. We obviously understand the impact that COVID has had on the revenue of your operations. And in fact, in the operational manual and the application document, you will see specific disclaimer on some of these eligibility requirements that allow for some flexibility on some of these specific eligibility requirements. Having said that, it's unlikely that we will end up financing or providing support to companies that find themselves in a situation of financial distress. That's just to be clear about that. We will certainly look at the liquidity situation of the company, and we will want to see that the organization, that the enterprise has sufficient liquidity to honor its short-term obligations, at least. So this funding, again, cannot be used to recover from a situation of financial distress.
Thank you, Pharaoh. I hope that clarifies, but certainly we do understand that there's been a lot of challenges during the COVID time. So trying to figure out how we can support you is something we would like to do. I see there's a couple of hands up, but I do want to get through one more question that was asked, I think, before the hands were raised, which was, I think my question, oh no, here it is. Okay, how will payment terms be done back to GGI? Is it at the end of the term? No, it is, there's a payment plan. Maybe we can move back in the slides, Daria, to the slide that shows the, there we go. Omar, could you review this again, just in case anyone missed it?
Yes, Christine. So the repayment is expected to be paid in 5 equal annual installments. So how it's gonna work, it's once we provide you with the funding, you will have to pay 24% each year the payment. So for example, in the case you're getting the loan this year, then you will be expected to start paying the next year. So 24% in the 24, 36, 48, and so on months. So that's how it will work, and the payment will be directly to GGGI.
Thank you, Omar.
Yeah.
Let me go to some of the hands that are, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. And I guess because I also saw some questions on that. Of course, you will need to sign the disbursement agreement as part of the application process. Yeah.
Thank you, Omar. One hand was up and then it went down. So I suppose that means your question was answered, hopefully. But I see a hand up from Chandal Brown. Could one of our hosts open the microphone so that Chandal can ask the question? There we go. Okay, Chandal, I think you should be able to unmute yourself and speak.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, good morning. I just got the link and joined in about 5 minutes ago. So I'm new to this. I don't know what it entails. So my one simple question is, does this apply to like livestock farmers, or is it an organization you have to be in, or just you can be like for your personal farming, like livestock and vegetables?
Thank you, Chandal. Well, thank you for joining. I think a lot of that was covered earlier on in the discussion, so we can answer it briefly now. But if you'd like more detail, I would encourage you to watch our recording. This session is being recorded and it will be posted on our social media and I believe emailed out to everyone who attended as well. But the short answer to your question is that the program we are talking about today, which is the interest-free loan program, is geared toward any green business, meaning a business that can show that part of the central to their business model is something that's contributing to environmental or social sustainability in their country and is open to for-profit businesses only. So not for households, but certainly agricultural businesses are certainly eligible as long as you can show that you have a green aspect to your business model.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your question. Let's see, I don't see any other hands up at the moment, but I do see a couple more questions in the Q&A. Okay, we have one from Telly. My question is about how GGI is managing risk. As a project, does GGI have a downside risk strategy for the funds to mitigate potential losses of portfolio? And is GGI going to explore cooperation with the Eastern Caribbean Partial Guarantee Corporation to mitigate risk? Omar, can I have that one to you?
Yes, and also I will invite Pharaoh to complement me if he's around. Yeah, so we have a mitigation risk strategy that we are implementing from the beginning of the implementation of the program. At this point, we haven't partnered with OECS in terms of offering any type of warranting. But what I will highlight is, as part of the mitigation strategy, it's itself the selection process and either the disbursement agreement and the evaluation process of each applicant. I mean that's what I would say, but I'll see Pharaoh, so I'll invite him to complement me.
Yes, I'd say overall it is our job to take on risks that others in the market might not be able to bear. What we really want to do here is to be able to contribute to, on the one hand, the economic recovery of seeds of these countries, while as well promoting low carbon resilient development. And that is to say that in order to achieve this mission or this target, we are willing to take on risks ourselves. So at this moment, no, we are not planning to provide any other type of credit enhancement or guarantee or accessing guarantees from third parties. In fact, as Omar mentioned earlier, this loan, interest-free loan that we are providing, it is meant to be junior to any other loan that the beneficiary enterprise might have received. And the purpose of this interest-free loan is, in a sense, to provide credit enhancement to the beneficiary enterprises.
Thanks very much for that. We have a follow-up question just coming in. Just 1 second. Okay. Curious, this is coming from Elijah. Curious if any consideration has been made to offering a line of credit instead of a loan, given the sometimes changing realities of operating business in markets and the need to tap back into funding that is being paid back. Pharaoh, can I direct that one to you as well, please?
Yeah, sorry, I seem to have a delay on the mute button. That's a really good point. However, we are limited by our current structure in a sense, and while that would have been a good use of the funds, at this moment we are unable to provide that type of
Thank you, Pharaoh. And we got a response from Elijah saying understood. Thank you. Okay, let me see. I don't see any other questions coming in at the moment. Let's see if we have any hands up. Sorry, managing a bunch of different windows on my screen here. Okay, we have a hand up from Mikhail. Could we have one of our hosts allow Mikhail to open his microphone, please? Mikhail, it looks like you should be able to speak, I think. Oh, there we go. Okay, you should be able to.
Hello? Hi.
Yes, now we're hearing you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties as I'm on a little road trip and trying to stay in tune.
No
I
problem.
misscheduled. But my question closes that you'd be able to make a decision on this.
Could you repeat that, Mikhail? You dropped out a little in the middle.
I wanted to find out after the application deadline closes.
Mhm. I'm having a hard time hearing you, but I think your question was about the timeline after the application deadline closes and how soon people will be notified. I think that's your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Could you repeat? Okay, now you're muted. In the meantime, maybe we could scroll back to the timeline slide.
Hi, could you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. My question was, after the deadline closes, how long would it take to process the grant of the application?
Gotcha. Yes. Okay. That's what I thought you were asking. Omar, could you speak to that? I think that's the slide that's on the screen right now. Or Pharaoh. It's easier.
Yeah, I'll have problems with the microphone. So after April 24th, we will run the preliminary screening at the end of April. So basically during that week and the first week of May, and then in May we will.
Omar, I think your connection is having issues. Pharaoh, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so we will conduct the internal assessment, meaning screening, evaluation, prioritization, and selection during the month of May. At the end of the month, we will notify selected beneficiary enterprises. We'll go through a relatively quick due diligence process that is meant to take 2 to 3 weeks. And then we will start the negotiation process on the grant agreement. So we expect by the end of June, beginning of July, to be able to have the grant agreement signed with the first cohort of beneficiary enterprises.
Thank you, Pharaoh. Thank you, Omar. We have another question from Telly asking, would you like to use psychometric tools as well to help you with selections? Our selection process is set for the most part. I'm personally not familiar with psychometric tools. Pharaoh, Omar, would you like to speak to whether that's something we have incorporated in our process?
At this moment, at this point, our evaluation, prioritization, and selection process is based on the characteristic of the enterprise and not the characteristic of, say, the managing director or the entrepreneur. So we will not be doing tests on the ability, or in this case, psychometric tests on the members of the team.
Okay, thanks very much, Pharaoh. And I don't see any more questions, but it's actually perfect timing because we are scheduled to end at 12:30, and I want to respect everyone's time and not go over. So I just want to, again, thank you so much to all our panelists for presenting and for sharing the information about our program. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for your questions. We're really excited to see your applications. So if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out. But again, also thank you for all you do as entrepreneurs in the region. I do also want to wish everyone a very happy International Women's Day. As we mentioned before, we do have a focus on women in our program, open to everyone, but we do want to make sure that we are particularly supporting women given the challenges that they face historically and today. And in that vein, I'd like to announce that we have a special event coming up related to our Greenpreneurs program on women in green innovation. This event will be happening on April 6th. And we will be circulating more information about that via our social media, via our mailing list. I think the link to the mailing list, if you're not on it, was posted in the chat earlier. So please feel free to join that. But we do also have all of your email addresses from your registration today. So we'll be circulating information on that event to you. Hopefully you will join us for that. As I mentioned, the recording of this webinar is being recorded. So we will be posting the recording on our social media pages. If you weren't able to join us until later, feel free to watch that. And also all the information that you need to apply, the application form and the application guidelines is also linked on our website and on our social media pages, which are listed there at the bottom of the slide, GGI Caribbean on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing your applications. Thank you.